A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another good, a warm and a very active morning. That is because it's a Monday morning after a weekend. Welcome to Getty Live session. My name is Shilpi. I'm the relationship manager with the Global Education and Training Institute. Well, who says that Sanskrit has lots of importance? Not at all. The more that we are forwarding into the coming century, the more the people are looking backwards towards our own culture. And the roots of the culture lie in this very language that is Sanskrit. Sanskrit is supposed to be the mother of so many languages in the world. In that sense, because the root word of every language somewhere connects to Sanskrit. And here I have Dr. Sampadananda Mishra, who is right now professor and trainer at sorry, it's Rashtram School of Public Leadership, Rishihood University, Sonipat, Haryana. He has been an expert in Sanskrit and has delivered many lectures even abroad, countries like USA and Monash University in Australia. He has also been awarded with the President's Award for his contribution towards Indian culture with the importance of Sanskrit. So, thank you, Doctor, for coming here, Dr. Mishra. And he's going to speak about a very important topic which is relevant in every year and every century. And that is, what does it mean to be a teacher? Is it just that a teacher is a person who delivers subject knowledge, or is he the one who can motivate a student to achieve something beyond his just ordinary capacities? So what is the role of a teacher with the changing times? And that is what he's going to talk about.
Namaskar. Thank you, Shilpi, for the introduction. So, dear friends, viewers, today's topic is what does it mean to be a teacher? So, as a teacher, whatever I have gained from the classroom, and as a teacher, what I have learned, what I have been learning, and as a researcher into the ancient Indian knowledge system, so what I have gathered from our Rishi Parampara, so I'll be speaking on the basis of that. What does it mean to be a teacher? I keep orienting and training hundreds of teachers every year. I interact with them, I meet them, I ask them various questions, and I have met some wonderful teachers. I have met many innovative teachers, really good teachers. When they share their experiences, it really fulfills, it really makes me happy. So let's come to the topic. What does it mean to be a teacher? So, if you are a teacher, have you ever asked this question? Why am I a teacher? Or what does it mean to be a teacher? As a teacher, every teacher must ask this question to himself or herself, that what am I going to teach? Is teaching in the classroom my job? For that I am a teacher. It's just I have got a job in some school to teach and I'm asked to teach a certain subject. Is that what is meant by a teacher? Or is there something beyond, something more to it? When we look at the teachers of ancient India, some of the really noble, good, ideal teachers of the present time who come in our life, whom we have met, who have inspired us, their stories, their ideologies, it truly makes a sense in a greater way. It inspires us to manifest that good ideal teacher within us. So let's look at some of the examples and then we will discuss about it. I remember one incident. It happened in the school in Sri Aurobindo Ashram, there was a teacher who once told his students that, look, today's class is not going to be in the classroom. Let's go my home and then we will be having the class there. So he took all the students with him to his home. And once the students arrived at his home, so he placed his bicycle in front of them and all the accessories to dismantle the bicycle. The children were very happy. It was very engaging, very interesting, entertaining for them to dismantle the cycle. So they dismantled completely the bicycle. Different parts were separated. But he also told them that to keep it carefully. So then, next day, nothing is missing. So the class is over. And then in the next class, they were again taken to the teacher's home. And this time the teacher asked them to bring it back, assemble all the parts, and then make the bicycle ready. The students put their mind, tried really hard to put it back, assemble back, but failed, completely failed. So this is where the class that day was over. On the third class, again, the students were asked, taken to the teacher's home. And this time, what the teacher told, that look, there is a boy on the roadside who is repairing bicycle. Go and request him if he can come and then repair and then bring us back the bicycle. So the students went, and the teacher had already talked to the boy on the roadside. So he came in front of the students, he explained them and also brought back the bicycle to its normal state. And once the work was over, once the task was over, so the teacher told very mildly, very humbly to the students that, look, when next time you meet this boy on the roadside repairing bicycle who has no education, who has not gone to school, so have respect for him. So it is by this example that the teacher gave a very fine lesson in life without mentioning anything else. It was a great lesson for the students, and the message was conveyed in a very effective and impactful manner. This is the quality that a teacher must carry within: how to handle the children, how to handle the situation, how to convey the message, not hurting anyone, not humiliating anyone, not making anyone feel disappointed or humiliated, yet the message, the necessary message to be conveyed, is conveyed in the right way. So a teacher is not expected to be an instructor, because in a true sense, if we contemplate on the very fundamentals of education with which the teacher and student both are involved, so the very foundational principle of education is nothing can be taught. Truly, no one can teach anyone else. The knowledge is within, and it must manifest from within. This is where the role of a teacher is nothing but to help, to facilitate, and guide the child who is studying under him or her, to help him manifesting that inner knowledge. So then the child's different faculties are developed, that knowledge is manifesting from within him. How does he do? How should the teacher do? So what kind of qualities that the teacher must have within himself, so that he becomes a perfect guide, a perfect supervisor, perfect path shower? Let's discuss some of the good qualities of a teacher. For a teacher, the classroom should be the place not just for teaching the students, but the platform for his and the students' inner growth. A true teacher always carries this sense of learning as much as he can from any situation, from anyone. A teacher is an eternal learner. The moment the teacher feels that he knows everything and there is nothing left for him to know, then he stops being a teacher, being a true teacher. Let me narrate you a beautiful story, a character, an ideal teacher, an ideal rishi who has inspired me a lot. The story is from the age of Upanishads. The story is about Rishi Uddalak. Rishi Uddalak had a child whose name was Shvetaketu. And the story of Shvetaketu is quite familiar amongst many people. So Shvetaketu, Uddalaka's son, was not much interested in joining the Gurukul or learning. When the age was getting over, the right age of sending the child to the school, and seeing no interest in the child for going to the school, Uddalaka, his father, he called him and then he said, look, in our family, there is no one has set an example of not going to the school and getting educated. So you must go and get educated, you must go and attend and live in the Gurukul. So somehow he managed to convince his son Shvetaketu to send him to Gurukul. Shvetaketu went to Gurukul, lived there for 12 years, and emerged as one of the best students. So everyone was talking about Shvetaketu. After his Dikshanta, after his convocation was over, so he returned home. And that was the day for Shvetaketu's returning home. And Uddalaka was peeping through, and the village people where, the ashram people where Uddalaka lived, so were, very happy that Shvetaketu is returning today. His father Uddalaka peeped through the windows to see how does my child walk, what is his attitude, how does he look, how he is looking at others, what are his different expressions, his body language. So, after observing him, Uddalaka felt that my child has not learned anything. The real knowledge has not yet manifested in him. So, why is he feeling, or everyone is talking that he is one of the best students? So, when Shvetaketu was about to enter, Uddalaka stopped him and then asked him some very important questions. Simple but very profound. So Uddalaka asked Shvetaketu, what have you learned? Shvetaketu said, ask me anything under the sun, I have learned it. All the Vedas, Upanishads, everything, all the Vidyas are there at the tip of my tongue. I will be able to narrate you, tell you, quote you, whatever questions you ask me. Uddalaka said, fine. Let me ask you three questions. Do you know that knowing which the unknowable can be known, the unthinkable can be thought of, the unheard can be heard, or the unseen can be seen? Adrishtam drishtam bhavati, ashrutam shrutam bhavati, amatam matam bhavati. Shvetaketu bowed down and then said, my dear father, I don't know. Perhaps my teachers did not know the answer to these questions, so they have not taught me. Then Uddalaka says, did you ask your teacher? No, this very question didn't arise in my mind. What happens to a true teacher? While imparting the education, he takes care to see that there is enough inquisitiveness in the student. And the teacher's own inquisitiveness, teacher's own passion for knowing more, it influences the student to develop that quality of jignasa. So unless and until there is intense jignasa in the student, the teacher sometimes hesitated to teach. So this is something that jignasa of knowing more and more and more. So anytime a question arises, so one seeks answers to it, and more one contemplates and ponders over the matter, the fact, so one is capable of developing that quality of jignasa within oneself. So, Shwetaketu, when he reported to his father that his teachers perhaps did not know answer to these questions and have not taught him, so Dalak said, no, there was not enough jignasa in you, so you didn't have these questions. But then Shwetaketu says, my dear father, can you teach me? And there is it's a whole long discussion in the Upanishad where one finds that how beautifully what should be the relationship between a teacher and the student, and then how does a teacher how should a teacher teach the child. So Uddalaka takes Shwetaketu by his side and then says that, my dear child, can you bring that small tiny banyan fruit from our courtyard? So now Shwetaketu brings a tiny banyan fruit and then places it before his father Uddalaka. Then Uddalaka asks him to break it open. So he breaks it open. He says, what do you find inside, my dear child? He said, nothing but some tiny seeds. Can you break one of the seeds? So he breaks one of the seeds and then said, what do you find inside? He said, there is nothing but some small fiber like things. He said, can you further break it and then see what is inside? So the process goes on, and finally, Shwetaketu reports that, my dear father, there is nothing inside. He said, my dear child, how can from nothing this huge banyan tree can come? So one single seed is responsible for the birth and growth of this huge banyan tree. Please remember that. And the whole tree is there within that tiny seed, which is invisible to us. So that is how the potential is within us, the knowledge is within us in a very essential manner that needs to manifest. We need to create that climate within. A great teaching which Uddalaka gave to him in forms of example. That is why one of the greatest qualities of the teacher must be not by instruction but by example, that the teacher must give the knowledge or impart the knowledge or place everything before the student. So, not by instruction, not by teaching, but by example. Another important quality a teacher must carry within or develop within a true teacher, an ideal teacher, is that he must not teach just by instruction. He is not a taskmaster or facilitator, but it is not even as a facilitator, as a guide, just guide him, but he must awaken the child, awaken the student, not just teaching or instructing or doing anything or imparting the knowledge in any manner, but whatever he does with the student, it awakens the spirit within. It awakens, it helps the child to be awakened to his own spirit. So by prabodhanam, not by prashikshanam, the teacher, by awakening, by enlightening him, by allowing him to grow from within. So he facilitates, or an ideal teacher facilitates that inner growth in the child. The third quality of a teacher, which is very, very important, it is not by the prabhava, it is not by his position, his knowledge, his, like power, that he should influence the student, but this influence must be by his presence. So the teacher, an ideal teacher, carries a greater presence within him, and this very presence influences the student. has a grand impact on the student. So, not by instruction, but by awakening, not by instruction, but by examples, by influence, that a teacher must impart knowledge. And a teacher, for him, the student must feel very confident in his presence. The teacher student relationship has to be such fine relationship that there is no any other interference between their relationship. But at the same time, a teacher is aware of the shortcomings of himself, the shortcomings of the students, and then helps the student to grow out of his limitations by imparting the true knowledge in the true manner, and also he himself growing within along with the student. So it is, there is no distance which is created between the teacher and the student. In the presence of an ideal teacher, all students feel very comfortable in learning from that teacher. And a teacher needs to have enormous patience in a classroom. Enormous patience. So the classroom is the place for the sadhana. Each and every teacher is expected not just to be innovative, not just to be smart, not just to be knowledgeable, but every teacher is expected to be a yogi in true sense. Then the whole system of education will change. Every teacher is expected to become a yogi. What happened in the ancient times, if we look at the Gurukulas, we find that it was the rishi who imparted the education. So the students grew in the family of the rishi. So the school was just, the Gurukul was a family. In the rishi's family, all the students grew with that kind of relationship. Going deeper into the very purpose of education, a teacher must be aware of, at every moment he has to carry this awareness in him, what is the very purpose of education and what is the very purpose of life. With the life and education, they should not be separated from each other. Life is the very field of education. Life itself is a process for the education to continue. And education is what, how do we transform our life, is also a tool for transforming the life. And life is a process for the education to continue. So this is what was very, very important in the field of education. When we talked about education, when we talked about teacher, when we talked about the students, when we talked about the teacher student relationship, or the very aim of education and life, so these were the things which were important for the ancient Indian seers and sages. So what was the very purpose of education? What was the very purpose of life? The ancient seers and sages kept these three things before them, that the very purpose is to become free from the limitations of falsehood, from ignorance, and then be led towards the knowledge. From asatya to satya, from andhakara to prakasha, from darkness to light, and from nirananda to ananda, from mortality to immortality. So that is where the greatest prayer that we find, which defines how the education, for what purpose the education has to be imparted, how a teacher and a student, they must grow together harmoniously. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya, was a very important prayer for the teachers and for the students. And the teacher always wanted, kept the student with him in his prayer. He prayed for both of them. Sahanavavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma vidvishavahai. So the teacher and student together they prayed that may there be no dispute amongst us. May there be no dvesha, no enmity amongst us. So together we grow, seeking the light, seeking the immortality, seeking the ananda, seeking the truth. And our learning be brilliant. This harmony is very much necessary, and this harmonious growth of the teacher and the student in the classroom was most important thing for the ancient seers and sages. It is not that the teacher always felt that he knows everything. For a teacher, life is the grand field for learning. Every moment there is the opportunity for learning from the life. Every situation teaches us. And he knows that learning is most important. So therefore, I mentioned right in the beginning that a teacher, the greatest quality of a teacher, that he is an eternal learner. And a teacher not only aspires to impart knowledge, but a, an ideal teacher always aspires to have good students, good learners. Therefore, in ancient time, we see that a teacher has a prayer where he says, Amayantu brahmacharinah swaha, Vimayantu brahmacharinah swaha, Pramayantu brahmacharinah swaha. From all sides, may good learners, brahmacharis, come unto me. So then there is a very harmonious growth of both of us, that we grow together. So that is how a teacher aspired to have good learners around him. A teacher aspired that the students be with him, and then he imparts the knowledge to the true patras. And if a true patra was not there, so the teacher inspired and created something in the learner in such a manner that a student, a dull student, or a student who didn't have any aspiration for learning becomes transformed. That is the power of a teacher, the true teacher. That he inspires, he transforms. Transforming the child is the most important task of the teacher, and he does it more by his presence, more by examples. We see many examples of the ancient Indian seers and sages, how they not only imparted the knowledge, not only created an example for them, the teachers themselves were the living examples of what they teach. And when the student was to depart, was to leave the school, the Gurukul, so they were given this advice: Satyam Vada, speak the truth. Dharmam Chara, follow the path of Dharma. Swadhyaya Namak Pramada, do not neglect your study. Swadhyaya. Do not neglect anything which helps the inner growth, which helps you be on the side of the truth. Always aspire for the light. Then he said that Yani Anavadyani Charitani Tani Sevasya. So whatever is our good things of the teachers, you follow that. But we also have shortcomings. We also have weaknesses. So do not follow that. Do not think about that. We are also trying hard to overcome that. But whatever good qualities that you see in us, you follow that. You try to imbibe that and manifest within that. But do not think that we are absolutely perfect. We also carry imperfections and shortcomings and limitations within us. That should not be any ideal for you. Never think about that. So yani asmakam anavadyani charitani tani sevitavyani na itarani, not other than what are our good qualities. So this is how a teacher in the ancient time kept inspiring and started imparted knowledge to the students. Then we see in the story, let me narrate you before I conclude. So this story of Gautama, who had adopted, who had accepted Satyakama as his student. Satyakama Javala was one unwanted child. So his birth was not certain, but he had a strong, intense, and pure aspiration for learning. So he said, I have this intense aspiration for learning, but who will accept me as his disciple? Because it is necessary that I have to be clear about my birth. Yet he gathered courage. He went to Haridrumata Gautama and then asked him that, can you accept me as your disciple? Haridrumata Gautama asked him, who is your father? He said, I don't know. But if it is very much necessary for you to know my father, let me go and ask my mother, understand from her. I will come back and report to you who my father is. So Satyakama goes back to his home and then asks his mother, tell me, Ma, who is my father? His mother said that, look, Satyakama, in my young age, I was serving in various homes, and this is how I got you. I'm not sure who your father was. So let my name is Jabali, your name is Satyakama. Let the world know you as Satyakama Javala. Now, how can someone express this truth before another? Satyakama gathers courage, goes to Haridrumata Gautama, and he places himself and then tells him that, look, I went to my mother, I asked my mother who my father is, this is what she told me, and that's all. Haridrumata Gautam stood up and then told Satyakama that, look, none other than a truth seeker can express this truth so confidently, so convincingly, and so truthfully. Go and fetch the dry woods. I will initiate you to the Brahma Vidya. So Satyakam goes and then fetches the dry wood, symbolizing, dry wood symbolizes ready to catch fire. So a teacher's responsibility is to see whether the student has enough readiness within him. Then the initiation is given. And this is a wonderful parampara, wonderful tradition that we have in Bharata, that how the teaching was given, what kind of ideal teachers we have, and then what does it mean to be a teacher. Before I end, one more story I would like to narrate. The story is all about initiation. There was a student whose name was Yusuf. So he went and approached a guru whose name was Junun. So he told him that, sir, I want to be initiated by you. Junun asked him to wait before he gave him initiation. So Yusuf waited for a long time, and he found that many young seekers who came after him are already given the initiation, but Yusuf is not given the initiation. The teacher even is hardly concerned about him. So after few years, one day, he gathered courage and then went to Janun. What happened? When am I going to be initiated? Janun didn't say anything, but he looked at another disciple and then asked him, have you kept the box ready? Now the disciple said, yes, okay, bring it. So he brought a tiny wooden box, very small, very light. So Junun handed it over to Yusuf and then said, look, my friend is living in a distant place. So can you go and hand it over to him? And then after you come back, we will talk about your initiation. Yusuf was very excited. He carried the box and then he started on his journey. So it was noon time. He took little rest. He had little food and then took rest, had a good nap. And by the time he got up, he had this thing in his mind. Oh, what must be there in this tiny box? It is not even locked, and there is nothing seems to be there. Why my guru wanted to give just this empty box to his friend? Is he truly, you know, sending some message through it? Or is there something very precious or not precious? Is there something inside the box? One mind is telling him that why don't you open the box and then see it? Another mind tells him that no, 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 that is not your duty. Your duty is just to carry the box and hand it over. So there is a conflict, there is a dialogue which goes on in the mind of Yusuf. And ultimately, Yusuf is defeated by the other mind, and then he makes a tiny opening to peep through to find out what is there inside. The moment he opens it up, poof, so a small rat jumped out of the box and then went. Yusuf was very, very disappointed. Nothing can be done. He can't find the rat back and then put it back. It was not a small piece of paper or anything which was there inside the box. The Guru had kept a very small rat inside. Now Yusuf is very, very dejected, in a very deplorable condition, didn't know what to do, yet he carried the box. And then when he handed it over to his friend, the Guru's friend looked at him. Why did you do that? And you must know that it is because of this that you are not yet ready to be initiated. Work hard on your mind. You still have a very fickle, uncontrolled, uneducated mind. So you don't have a refined mind, that which is the most important thing for any initiation. So he goes back, works hard on his mind, and then he is given the initiation by his guru Junun. So in initiation, what is important is the concentration of the mind. One needs to develop that concentrated silence and focus in the mind. A true guru, carries that environment of silence within him. In his presence, in the presence of a true guru, one feels that silence. And in our tradition, it is even said that the whole education is imparted by a true guru in silence. Gurustu maunamakhyatam, shishyastu chinna sansaya. Guru doesn't speak anything, but the shishya in his presence becomes free from all his doubts. So it was in this manner the education was imparted. We had wonderful gurus, wonderful rishis, whose lives examples, who are the living examples for all of us to learn from them what does it mean to be a teacher. To summarize what I feel, that to be a teacher, we must consider every situation, every moment, every climate, everything in this world as a platform for learning and updating ourselves. We must carry this universal love and compassion manifest within us, so then we can impart education with true love, with true compassion. As a teacher, we must be silent, carry that silence, a silent mind, a very refined senses, very refined heart, a udara charita. So then, a teacher with udara charita can carry this bhava of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The Laghuchetas cannot carry this bhava of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So teacher must be Udara Charita, very broad, expanded consciousness. So he lives in that ananda, lives in that consciousness. And a teacher in a classroom must be very hardworking, innovative, and always understanding. Understanding what? The teacher's responsibility is to understand the swabhav and the swadharma of each child in a classroom. Sometimes question may arise, is it possible to understand the swabhav and the swadharma in the present day classroom and then impart education? Believe me, everything is possible if we make an effort. If we carry that within ourselves, if we try to arise the true teacher within ourselves, everything is possible that we are talking. It's not just any ideal or ideology, but this is what something very, very living that we can experience in the classroom by examples, by our presence, by carrying that silence, by carrying that true knowledge, by manifesting that true knowledge within ourselves. So, therefore, every teacher, as I mentioned earlier, must be a yogi, must be a sadhak. So, this sadhana, this seeking, so this sadhana for improving and manifesting the true knowledge within, and then be with that, and then imparting that, facilitating that process by which the student himself or herself can manifest the knowledge from within is the most important task of a teacher. With these words, I come to an end of my speech, and then if there are questions, I will address to those questions. Dhanyavad. And thank you, Geti, for giving me this opportunity for sharing whatever little I know. So I wait for the questions of the viewers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mishra. And listening to you, first of all, I would like to pay my obeisance to the divine in you. Um, it was such knowledge that which is actually the main, you can say, the root of what the entire education system, which we have forgotten. We are talking about, this is the question that would be related to. We talk about upgrading the teachers in technology, we talk about upgrading the teachers in subject knowledge, all kinds of trainings, but these little things that you have just mentioned, you know developing some kind of patience, developing training our own mind first into silence, and being a good listener, understanding. So where do we start from? Is it still possible for teachers who have already become teachers with the trainings of like bachelor's in education and then technology training, is it possible, like teachers like us who come from this background, can we still go back? And if we want to go back to these very qualities, which are the core qualities of a teacher, good teacher, what is the process? Where do
The
we start from?
Okay, thank you for this question, because this is a very practical question, which everyone would expect that how do we move ahead? What is the process? The only process is to reflect and then ask this question: that why am I a teacher? Am I truly fulfilling the role and responsibility of a true teacher, or I am just mechanically going to the classroom and whatever knowledge or whatever little training I have, I'm just teaching with that instead of bringing any kind of
Hmm.
improvement truly within me? This reflection is very much necessary. And another thing, whatever we want to do in life, whether we are a teacher or we are anything in the life, so the very fundamental process of any progress is to be conscious at each step. So to be conscious and to do everything with that awareness, with that consciousness, not like a robot, not like a machine.
Yes,
So
yes.
everything begins with this process of becoming conscious of ourselves. whatever we are doing. So even if we are doing with physically or mentally or emotionally, we need to bring much awareness into our being. So then every action of ours becomes a conscious action or an action with awareness. This reflection is very much necessary. At each step we must ask. So there is a beautiful verse which says, Pratyaham pratyavekshetan rascharitam kinnu me pasubhistulyam kinnu satpurushairiti. So it says that every moment we must see, we must examine ourselves. So all my actions, are they actions oriented, or are they actions of a Satpurusha, or these are just brutal mechanic and Gatanugatik? It's just, like stereotyped action, or is there something which carries some value in it? So if we are not asking this question and we're happy with all that we are, then there is no progress. So this is the very first condition of any progress, any change, that we must reflect and then ask this question and then do this Atmanushilanam, Atma Parikshanam, that whether I am truly progressing or not, whether I am truly delivering my responsibilities rightly, ideally, nobly, or not. So this reflection, this Atma Anushilanam, Atma Parikshanam, and to be conscious are the two prominent processes to develop these qualities, whatever good qualities that we need to uh, you know
So, isn't that
uh,
what we call in Zen, in the Zen philosophy, what we call mindfulness?
uh, the mindfulness has its own like way of, like, it is one of the tools which is given for us. If you say that by mindfulness technique is bringing much awareness to you and then you resonate good with that, it's fine. It all depends upon, like as I said, there cannot be one rule, one way for everyone. You cannot make one shot and then ask everyone to fit into it. So everyone has to find out what is the best suitable thing for his own growth. So this comes by growing more and more aware of ourselves.
Yes.
Atma Jnanam, Atma Sachetanata, the self awareness is the key to our true progress. If there is no Atma Sachetanata, if there is no self awareness, in fact, if my education is not helping me to become aware of myself, then what kind of education am I getting it? I may be qualified, but I am not
Yeah.
truly educated. The very purpose of education is Atmanam Vidhi. And today in education, we have everything. I have the skill, I have the information, I have everything. I have the technology, but I don't know who am I. I'm unable to handle my own situations in life. I'm not aware of what I am doing. So this self-awareness is very much necessary, and everyone has to find out for himself or herself what suits best.
Yes. Like, yes, you have led me to my last, almost second last question. These days, when you talked about the teacher observing silence, trying to be, let's say, mindful, that is a new term being used today in education. Um, but then, there's so much of expectations from a teacher, right from the parents to the students to even those people, who are supposedly managing the school and all. So even if the teacher wants to be all these things that we have just talked about, the pressure is such a lot that we have to actually come back to these non-practical ways. That's what I call that. These are not a very long-lasting. I mean, finishing the syllabus on time, curriculum on time. Seeing that the children know it very well in their heads, whatever they are learning, and they are able to produce this during the exam, and that is all what we have come to. um, First, we used to have a moral value classes, which used to be a 40 minutes dedicated classes once in a week or something, and as per the religion of the child, sometimes, like, I studied in a convent, so the Christians went for catechism and we were like separately sitting for our moral value classes. But now that has turned out to be just a book of moral value that can be filled by the child whenever he has time. It's not a dedicated class anymore, and those classes are utilized for finishing the course and other subjects. So, I mean, what I would like to you to is reflect upon this situation, that how can we merge these two? Is it only the teacher who has to change herself, his or
No.
herself, or is it the entire education system which needs to have a new perspective?
Yeah. See, there needs to be a radical change to take place in the entire
Yes,
system of education.
yes,
Okay. There is another side to it also, that we are, say for example, like we are trying to finish the syllabus and then give as much
mm,
information as
mm,
we can to the student and
yes,
doing all these things. We feel that okay, our students in the school are doing best. We have many students who have secured above 90% and this and that.
yes,
But we forget we are not truly building the children. We are not really having like what Swami Vivekananda spoke, what Sri Aurobindo spoke about, the character building, man making,
yes, yes,
nation building education. Whereas that education is very very far from the present day education. So where is that man making education, that it makes the man
exactly.
from within, it makes me a man and realize who I am.
Yes,
And
exactly.
the thing is like we are just cutting trees with blunt instruments,
Hmm.
and we are busy cutting trees. We are busy cutting trees. We have no time to sharpen the instruments. This is where the woodcutter, when like a passerby, he goes and asks him, "Hey, this you could have taken just 5 minutes to fell this tree. You have taken 45 minutes to cut this tree. Show me your axe." So he found that it is absolutely blunt. He says that, "Why don't you go and sharpen the axe?" He said, "Where is time? I have to cut trees." And what are
Yes.
the instruments that we need to sharpen? So how much effort we give in our education system to sharpen and refine the power of concentration, the power of observation, the willpower, the original thinking power, the power of reasoning, refining the senses, refining our emotions. How much time is given through this, I mean for this? It doesn't happen unless and until the education system has adopted all these things. It's extremely difficult to bring the change that we are thinking about. And a teacher has a greater role to do. Like, if one impactful, effective teacher has tremendous power to change the situation. Why I say even a capable teacher can do all these things, can help the children developing their power of concentration, observation, through whatever subject they are teaching. And it's possible. I tell it from my experience as a language teacher, that I don't just teach the language, but it is through that I also see that how I am linking the process of developing the power of observation. At the same time, the language learning also happens, developing the power of concentration along with the language learning, developing the power of reasoning, the power of original thought along with the language learning. So every subject teacher can find out ways how to link it. But today we are
Hmm.
teaching in a very fragmented way, just the subject, no interest even in the subject, where we fail to create interest. If the child doesn't understand, we scold him, you cannot understand, you are stupid, or something like that. We say, we put the whole blame on the child without understanding that whether the child is capable or not. So therefore, like I remember in Sri Aurobindo ashram, one child once went to the mother and then said that, like, I get scolding from the teacher that I am unable to learn. So it is, then the mother said that, no, 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 you have no fault. You are such a wonderful child. Only thing that your teacher doesn't know how to teach you. That's the problem. So that's where lies the secret, that can the teacher learn the best way of teaching, imparting the knowledge? So a teacher can do it. And the process is that we have to go back and then be within ourselves and develop those finer qualities of concentration, observation, original thinking, willpower, patience, and all kinds of good soul values we need to develop within ourselves. That is why a teacher is when you look at a rishi, he is fearless. And today teachers are very, very much afraid of many things. Teachers are not fearless today. They're
Yeah.
apprehensive of many things. Their level of anxiety, stress is much more than a normal person. And this is what the system has created.
Yes, that is what I asked you. Like,
Yeah,
because,
yeah, that is
even
what
if a
the
teacher wants to experiment, he or she is so much bound by the curriculum, the syllabus, completing in time, that, that part then takes a back seat, and don't get the freedom to experiment.
yes. Yet a teacher can bring so many things into the classroom if he
Mm.
can develop ways of teaching things rightly, his subject rightly. I have experimented it and then done it in the classroom. That's why I'm telling you with confidence that yes, it is possible. Even though the system doesn't allow, we can find a
Mm.
way to teach and then complete our syllabus in a very effective manner, yet helping the child to grow from within.
Right. So, thank you, Dr. Mishra. Thank you for being so patient with us and answering all our questions. Um, we would like to see you in future once again with another interesting topic.
Most welcome. Anytime.
Have a good
My
day,
pleasure.
sir.